My name is Paige Speers, and the bullet points of what happened to me in my pulmonary embolism and anoxic brain injury and the possible causes that I've identified are antibiotics use as a teenager, prescribed supposedly to treat acne that I had going on, followed by less than optimal nutrition, which echoes what Amy discussed earlier, and then that had a detrimental effect on my microbiome and neurotransmitter production, since that was really important, and that then affected my mood. And so by my sophomore year in college, I had full-blown anxious depressive symptoms. And so with that, I ended up on anti-anxiety medications. And also, yes, since it also had a disruptive effect on my hormones, of the emotions going on and the nutritional piece. So I took those, and I was on a dosage roller coaster of with the anti-anxiety medications for the 12 years after that, followed by also employment that wasn't quite resonating with me. And so there was the energetic and emotional piece that was out of alignment. So I kept going, and I thought things were going better at some points more than others. And I had changed to full-time permanent employment. I finally got that, thinking that an office job would at least give me full-time pay and nights and weekends off. And I did get that, but I wasn't happy with it. So then by May 11th of 2016, I was 32 when it all happened, and I was at the office. I had come back from a psychiatrist appointment when I had also had a gene site test that showed too late that I had genetic metabolization incompatibilities with all the medications that I've been taking. But then it was the afternoon at the office, and I thankfully was in the mailroom with my coworkers. And ironically, my work was at a law firm in the medical claims department, though not for the state I was living in at the time. And so I was sitting there, and I said I felt dizzy and weird, and I had enough time to call my now husband. And on the phone, he said I sounded weird too. And so then I just blacked out, and my coworkers did CPR until the ambulance got there. And then what happened after that is that I was inpatient for a total of 5 weeks between the university hospital with the level 1 trauma center and the rehab facility. And at the university hospital, my care team said they'd never seen a cardiac case come off assisted breathing in less than 24 hours. So I had something going for me there. Maybe it was the Merkaba that I'd worked on in the years prior with my energy group. And also I did have outside help from the divine realms. Like my Reiki practitioner said that my grandma, who had passed before that, was with me. And so I had a lot of scans done, and it was determined that the preventative blood thinners everyone gets when in the ER had kicked in. And so the blood clots were already dissolving, and that's when they figured everything out. And fortunately for me, I didn't need any other interventions in that area. Although it was tricky for them to, well, they couldn't do an fMRI since I was so agitated from coming off the anti-anxiety medications and withdrawal. So that was out the window, although I don't know if it would have done much good after a while anyway, since the functional neurologist that I later saw said that the tests he was doing pretty much showed what was going on with everything. And then the things that happened after that were that it was, well, at the rehab hospital when I realized I couldn't read. And that was a shock to me since I'd been such a strong reader before. Although it took me a good 6 to 8 months to really relearn how to read, though not quite at the same speed. And also, my vision in general was off. And it was a behavioral ophthalmologist who got me my first prismatic lenses prescription in my glasses. And also, about a week after being home from the rehab hospital, my left leg, well, first it was my ankle swelled up, and then my whole lower left leg seized up and started spasming. And that was pretty bad. And that went on nearly 24/7 for at least 6 months. And yeah, so I was taking muscle relaxers for that, which didn't actually help so much as make me sleepy. And so that was really it. And then the things that have helped me were neurofeedback. And I got a referral from that from the outpatient rehab center where I was, and I moved back to, it all happened in Missouri, where I was living with my now husband. And then I moved back to Northern Illinois for the better part of a year to recover with my parents and go to outpatient therapy there. And I also, from that outpatient facility, they had a brain injury support group and a guest speaker from a therapeutic horseback riding stable. And also, my VIP gift is an audio of an interview with her, my therapeutic horseback riding instructor. And so, yeah, I also discovered nutrition and how to improve things that way. And I credit that along with chiropractic adjustments, which I found through a brain injury support group back here in Missouri. And also the facilitator of that support group is my somatic practitioner who also had her own brain injury experience. And then along with the nutrition and neurofeedback, I did that twice a week for about 8 months. And that was electrodes on my head. And certain protocols were run while I was watching a movie. And the screen would flicker as my brain responded to the protocols, and it would get clear when things were working well. So yeah, all of this, and I've continued to improve, and I learned about functional neurology from the Brain Health Summit with Amy Zellmer, and that was in, I think, 2008, and I got my disability benefits in 2019, and yeah, the summit was in 2018. And I did my research and I found this particular functional neurologist and opted to use my disability back pay on a 3-day intensive to get things set up there. And well, learned that yes, traditional neurology can prescribe pills, but it's functional neurology that really gets to the core of things. And I was also able to go off all of the muscle relaxers and completely clear of anti-anxiety medications by 2018 and 2019. And that's where I am now, and connecting other brain injury and other injury survivors with those therapies have been so beneficial to me, and take them from surviving to thriving and shattered to unbreakable.
I'd love to open it up for questions for Paige. As you can see, this is a remarkable journey for this young woman, and she's made some wonderful, wonderful choices along the way. I do have a question. I'm going to let other people respond to you first, but one of my questions, Paige, is I want to hear about your wedding day. Because when this event happened to you, you were not yet married. Is that correct?
Yeah.
Okay, so I'll let other people jump in, but I want to hear about that because that has got to be a wonderful, wonderful story to share. Okay, if you've got something you'd like to say to Paige, feel free to unmute yourself. You might want to raise your hand. We've got a number of people in here now, but you know we're intimate and casual.
Yeah.
That's an incredible story. Like just imagining myself going through something like that is terrifying. Um,
Hmm.
I'm sort of curious in your process in learning how to read again, or the other things you had to re-experience and get used to again. Did you find um, different ways? I mean, clearly you're doing things differently, but did you find different ways of accessing the same skill sets, like in speaking or reading? I've heard of a friend who had a brain injury and she had a really hard time verbalizing her thoughts after that. And she found that if she sang, it just flowed out. So she would sing everything, but if she tried to speak, it would just stop. She couldn't put it together. And so did you find processes like that or tools like that to access those skills again?
Well, with reading, I started with short words and kids' books, actually, and gradually worked my way up, although it was frustrating. And I can say I have a lot of empathy now for kids who in school who have trouble reading. And now I understand why some people dislike reading. And in fact, I've lost my patience for long hard copy books and prefer audio books instead now. And with things like walking and speaking, it's been a process of rewiring, yes. And with my walking, it's definitely been an adventure in repatterning and working with my breath. And for whatever reason, that seems challenging now, though it's a good challenge and a stretch for me. And though that goes back to what likely happened with my diaphragm probably disconnecting and shutting down, even with the assisted breathing. And I'm considering possibilities of correlations with that too. And even the likelihood of people taking the medications that I was taking, having the incident that I had happen and surviving it.
Awesome. Thank you for sharing.
Yeah, I have a comment. Paige, great, so courageous to speak about it. I appreciate that and admire it.
Yeah,
Disclosure is key. My question is, because I've kind of lived my story, is mentally, emotionally, how did you maintain a state which gave you the ability not to give up?
that's a good question. I, I somehow had the presence of mind my sophomore year of college when things were really kicking up. I had the presence of mind to put in for transfer of schools. And so I switched to a school that was closer to home and I swapped out my equestrian major in favor of dance, which I had had about an equal number of years experience in. And I got my BA in that. And then for everything else, that's a really good question since it was kind of a roller coaster at certain points. And then after the injury, well, that's also a good question since it is just a question of personal resilience, I'm thinking. Though I did have a lot of times when things just felt flat and they even sounded flat, and that was probably the effect of the muscle relaxers. And I was taking one other uh, mood stabilizing medication for a few months afterwards. And then when I was able to stop taking everything, I lost all the weight that I'd gained.
Good question, Jeff. And I'm aware from having developed a relationship with Paige is that she has an energetic and spiritual framework for her life. And she's doing some, I would say, fairly advanced energetic studies if she's working with Merkaba. And I think if you want to share a little bit about that, that would be really cool.
Sure, I had done some work with an energy work kind of group in the 2 or 3 years beforehand, known as Temple of the Threefold Flame, and that involved 8 ray pillars of ascended masters. And so that was my initial real contact with energy work. And I did sacred geometries for each degree level. There were 4 of them, and most of us got to 3. And so I achieved the rank of Lady Knight and had a purple cape and the sword. And so we did lodge ceremonies every week for the most part. And so that really did help me to get the first anchor in of my Merkaba and all the other edgy work. And it was kind of an on and off habit after a while. Well, mostly in 2015 when things kind of slowed down there, and the group only lasted for a few years while I was in it. But then I did monthly Reiki shares, which I've continued. And that's really been nice for me. And also, even before that, in college, I went to a Munaiki rites event, and it was someone that I'd met, and I don't even remember the circumstances, but then I also had some Reiki sessions with her, since she was a Reiki master, the person who facilitated the event. And I went to a 4 elements retreat in college. So I've had good contact with energy and energetic practices for a good part of my adult life, and remembering my true identity. And that's also come into play with Human Design and Integrated Medicine Institute based in Australia. I did a 1.5 years of training in that, and I learned energy and story processes and clearings to do in that. And I still have the charts printed out from that. And I've also, in Human Design, done classes where we have monthly meetings and ceremonies for things. And according to my Human Design chart, I'm a generator or alchemist. And yes, we do the work that others have started.
Thank you for that, Paige. We need to conclude. I hope everyone has been as excited about the information that Paige Speers has shared with us today